Who knows what the first use for methyl bromide was? So, anaesthetic for dentistry. So it's widely used for that. Not everybody came round, so they realised they had some other special properties and got into fumigation from there. It was widely used in forest firefighting, dropped with aircraft onto forest fires, used in military tanks, used in aircraft, used in trains, all as fire extinguishers. It's had a lot of use, but people are a bit more concerned about it these days. So as I've got to know methyl bromide, I'm not that scared of it. The scary thing for me is the methyl bromide bus that I'm on. So I'm on the bus. It's a pretty primitive bus, this one. It's like the Keanu Reeves Sandra Bullock movie, Speed, and you're on this bus and it's going faster and faster. The bad guys are outside the bus, they're controlling the bus. So I've got all these, they're wankers, I can't say much else, all these wankers that have got some reason for wanting the methyl bromide recapture, wanting things going on, and they've got the business case for a recapture facility that they think they can build but haven't got the technology yet, is predicated upon the legislators mandating it. So there's a lot of people pushing the legislators to mandate a lot of things with methyl bromide, and then once it's there, they say, oh, now we've got a problem. But it's not their problem, it's your problem as an industry. So this is the methyl bromide bus, and with the square wheels and everything else, going flat out, screaming as fast as we can, don't have time to stop for help. And I've got one correction, this isn't industry funded, this is Genera funded, because we haven't had time to slow down and fill in a form to apply for any funding, we're just doing it. So the other thing that scares me is whenever we have a board meeting, I go up and say, oh guys, this wasn't budgeted, I spent another $500,000 on research last week or something like that, and then I keep offering to resign, they keep me on. So this is a story about a journey on the methyl bromide bus, and it's scaring the shit out of me, and you guys should be scared too. Now I've got to work out how to make this. So silviculture is the art of turning trees into silver. So we've heard this morning all this other stuff about genetics and growing and all that stuff. No matter how well you grow your trees, no matter how good your genetics are, no matter how efficient your harvesting is, when you get to market, if you don't access your market, your business, your forest estate value is worth nothing. You can do all of that, you can masturbate the hell out of your forest estate models, and you're going to come up with the value of zero if you can't plug in a market. So this is critical, getting to market. So we have a lot of these logs that we can't cut up in New Zealand. It'll take, Red Stag's the biggest sawmill in the Southern Hemisphere. If you build 20 more Red Stags, which you won't get consent to do in the first place, and you haven't got the money and nobody's going to want to invest that much, but if you did, by stroke of luck, 20 of them, then you would cut up all of the logs that we have to export. If you have an ambition to do that, well, you've got to wait and you've got to keep the forest industry growing trees for that, how long it takes to do that. So you absolutely have to export, and our entire business is predicated on log exports. So that's them all lined up there, ready for export. So our guys at Genera, we do a lot of stuff, and squash cockroaches and fumigate soils in Australia and do things, biosecurity work here and there, but we do a few logs. So we fumigate a truck and trailer load of logs every 30 seconds, 24/7, 365. So I gave my guys a day off last Christmas, and the clients were squeaking about it because they just want the pressure on it. So it's a pretty high pressure game with a lot of volume going through. Why the hell do we do it? Well, we could put up 300 quarantine pests. Most of you guys know them. The top ones are sort of fashionable quarantine pests. The bottom ones are our nice native hoo-hoos and carry weevils. So if you go to the Chinese and present them with a case that an insect they've never heard of isn't a risk to them, it's a hard battle. So the Chinese are the ones that prescribe methyl bromide and other things. They're the guys we've got to deal with. So for the topsoil logs, that's how we do it. So we have these stacks of up to maybe 1,000 tonnes of logs, throw a cover over them, 25 by 80 metres, squirt some gas in, and afterwards it's released to air. That's the problem. There's a lot of discussion about methyl bromide and toxicity. The primary driver is ozone depletion. Methyl bromide has an atmospheric half-life of close to a year, and in that time heats up the ozone layer, and those of us like me with fair hair get melanomas, which I do have. So back in 2000, when I first clambered onto the methyl bromide bus, I went to China to lead a delegation to negotiate for the use of phosphine as an alternative. No efficacy data, no precedent, no nothing, a lot of talk, and got it over the line, which was a miracle. And since then, so this is us loading phosphine onto the deck of a ship that gets poked in the holes. All the ones that are sealed in the holes can be fumigated in transit, so that's fairly easy. what's happening? IQ test. We've saved about $90 million worth of direct expenditure. This is probably year-old data. Saved 14,000 tonnes of methyl bromide. So when I get the Stephen Brownings of the world denigrating me as the world's greatest environmental vandal, I point to the positive we're making, saying if you want to make an industry a difference here, do it from within the industry, not without. That's where you can make a difference. And he says to me, oh, can you say that you're an environmentalist? I say, yes, I can. Moot point. But the industry saved about 400 million. The value added to the industry is to your estate values, or what they'd be if it wasn't for it, is just put another zero on the end of that. So it is significant. But yeah, I'm struggling with the IQ test. So regulatory control of methyl bromide. The primary driver is the Montreal Protocol. We manage that domestically under the Ozone Layer Protection Act. There's a few other chunks of legislation around there that we don't gas people at the port and don't kill anybody things, but the driver is actually ozone layer depletion. There's a perception promulgated by people that aren't that well informed. Methyl bromide use is restricted. Methyl bromide is toxic. Methyl bromide is restricted because it's toxic, so it must be bloody horrendous. Well, actually, we're working quite hard on a lot of other fumigants as well, but methyl bromide is actually the mildest. So I've gone from being quite anti it to being a borderline methyl bromide evangelist as I've got more familiar with it. So there's a sort of a cascade of different legislation under which we're working, and us little guys at Genera get slammed in a different direction every 5 minutes from somebody that has another legislative stick. It's quite entertaining. So we've had 29 years since the Montreal Protocol, and as well as the guys who are help guiding our bus that I'm not keen on, they're pushing different recapture systems at us. The whole world's been out there making, this is a couple of examples of good ones. You push methyl bromide onto carbon, you push it off. It's exothermic when it absorbs, you need heat to push it off. Heat, carbon, airflow together, you get fires. There's a whole lot of things. We've had hundreds and hundreds have come up, and when I started looking at this, come back to Genera and say, we've got to throw a bit of money at this. So that's sort of where our research program started, saying we're in this business, we're in it big time. If we don't do it ourselves, no other bugger's going to do it for us. And that's critically important to you guys as the forest industry, because no other country is stupid enough to export all its raw logs. We're doing it, we're the guys doing it big. It's our problem, it's not the rest of the world's problem to solve for us. So when we started a research project, this is sort of a second order prototype. So that's just little liquid scrubbing logs. We still use that one every day at the port. We've got this research program going, and because they keep lifting the hurdles and the bar goes higher and higher and higher in terms of regulatory performance that we have to meet, all of our research gear is used operationally every bloody day, and we don't get any thinking done because we're trying to run with the bus, I guess. Methyl bromide, what have you got to do? The crux is really, you've got to catch these molecules that are whistling past in an airstream, and then you've got to either reuse them or you've got to do something with them. And that destruction is hydrolyzing that molecule. So you've really just got a methyl group with the bromine stuck on, that's all it is. So you're just trying to chop that in half. So we started in the shed, and I had a guy helping me part-time, and I was doing my main job running the company most of the time and playing around the shed in my spare time. He's going, oh Jesus, I can't believe that there's a $2 billion industry critically dependent on, and we're just buggering around in the shed. And I said, yeah, the whole industry, they've got their head in the sand. And he goes, yeah, it's terrifying. I said, well, they should be terrified, yeah, but they're not. Said, doesn't matter. We're at the cutting edge of buggering around. And we were. So if you look at the top curve there is essentially a control line. That's water through. And this is what everybody else on the planet had done with their chemical hydrolysis of methyl bromide. And the bottom line is us replicating what they did. So your x-axis is 24 hours, and this is a fumigation enclosure half the time size of a 20-foot container. So it's bugger all. So that was where we were, and that was what caused the poor man to get depression. But this is our cutting edge. When you want to be at the cutting edge, this is a psychology thing, the Dunning-Kruger effect. You should look it up. If you don't know a lot about it, and the person behind you is sort of smirking at you, it's probably because you don't know much. So what it says is, when we first go into an area about which we know absolutely nothing, we think we know the world, and as we get on a little bit, we realise how little we know, and eventually we get to the point where we've been in the game for a while and we start to know more. So we were at the peak of ignorance when we started our our project, and that was our strategic advantage over the rest of the world. And its chemistry is the problem, and my background is not chemistry. So that's how we succeeded. So the second lot of trials, I said, we've got to catch these molecules as they go past. Don't worry about us bloody chopping them up. It's the catching's the hard bit. So we went for a design of a scrubber and a design of the juice inside the scrubber that was focused on catching methyl bromide and not destroying it. And we got rid of all the chemists. So here we go. Same graph, real work, but the x-axis changed. That first point where it hits it is 60 minutes. So we'd suddenly gone from it taking 24 hours to 60 minutes. So then I trot back to our board and say, a bit more money, please. This is quite fun. And this is the first independent trial of the next size up scrubber that we built. So this is a full size, but not huge, like 350 tonnes of logs in a log stack, so it's real. At the end of the fumigation, we've got 100 grams of methyl bromide per cubic metre in there. Turn on the scrubber, away we go. So as soon as you drop below the concentration in the fumigation headspace, it starts to desorb from logs. Now, the regulators still haven't quite got their heads around what are we trying to recapture? Is everything we put in, is it all that's in the headspace? I've been asserting to them on behalf of the industry saying, if it's not just the headspace, we're all going home, because there'll be some methyl bromide coming out of the logs when they arrive in China. It's just an ever diminishing curve. So as you scrub down, it tails off. That's because the molecules are getting further away and they're harder to grab, I think, and because it's desorbing from the logs as fast as you're getting it, and because life gets a bit more difficult. So that says that after 3 hours, we scrubbed 87% of the methyl bromide in the headspace, minus what we leaked out, because it's a real-world experiment, plus what was desorbed from the logs. And I can't quantify that, and neither can the regulators. But if we turned it off, if you go to the red spot a bit further over, the red line, it had popped up by 3,000 ppm after that time. So the perception of some of the regulators that you should scrub down to a level where you can rush up and stick your head underneath the fumigation cover is a little bit naive, because no matter what you have, it'll be desorbing from the logs for a long time. So then we got chemists in, since I'd already conceded my ignorance and had a bit of a play. So the grey line is the sort of juices other people around the planet have been using for scrubbing and given up. The pale blue line up top is the juice that we've been using in our sort of trials and we're using commercially. And we played around with a few different sort of bespoke scrubbing mixes to see if we could improve. And so we got better from that performance early on. And then we had said, how big can we go? So we had to scale up. So it got bigger and bigger. Now, the machines don't look expensive. It had to be cheap. It's a quick and dirty job, dirty game. Water tanks and bits. But I'm still spending $500,000 plus on machines each to try and get what I want. So this one was, can we scrub from ship's hold? Now the ship's hold project, India doesn't accept phosphine. So the in-transit fumigation's on the way to China, it's done with phosphine in transit. The top stow is done with methyl bromide, and all of the India logs are done with methyl bromide. So India market, you guys, not me, have a problem that come 2020, if we haven't got ship's hold scrubbing sorted, then you won't be able to access the India market. I had to go back to our board about 8 months ago and say, well, I'm starting to get a bit thin on money I'm spending, I know that. The India stuff isn't going to hit us that big. We'll carry on with the development. We just can't afford to drive and lead that. So that's been passed hot potato across to the Forest Owners Levy Trust. So these guys are going to pick that up, I hope. They've had it since about May as a sort of something to look at, and 2020 is coming. So that's the project to design the big scrubber you see there to the next level and make sure that can do log ships to the standard required. And meanwhile, we're building bunches of the smaller ones that we can use operationally. We're forever getting somebody on our back saying, what are you doing? How are you achieving it? How well are you scrubbing? So this is another independent validation of our technology done by Plant and Food Research under Stimber's supervision, and we just sort of turned up and did as we were told. And so essentially, within an hour, you've got most of the methyl bromide and you've got that asymptotic curve that you never actually reach. So we're getting most of the methyl bromide with our liquid scrubbing in about an hour off. I don't know how big those log stacks were, but they're real log stacks. That's somebody else's words. So that's the conclusion of the report by Plant and Food Research that says after 2.5 hours, we've got 95% plus or minus of the methyl bromide remaining. And again, I keep pushing back to the regulators saying, the driver for methyl bromide recapture is a macro environmental driver. It's not about sticking your head inside a fumigation chamber. It's not about managing people at the port, because we manage that anyway. It's about the environment, it's about the ozone layer. So if a dairy farmer can capture 3/4 of his nitrates or phosphates leaching out of his farm, he's a national hero. Well, I'd quite like to be a national hero too, but I can do a little bit better than 3/4. I'll go to 90%. So the target we're pushing at the regulators is 90% recapture, and they don't have a clue. So where are we going? So we've got as part of this research, we've gone from me and Malcolm in a shed to now an independent company that's one of our subsidiary companies with 10 guys playing around in it that know a bit more about this than me. We're playing at optimising the scrubbing, carbon scrubbing, the swing systems. There's a lot of other stuff we're doing, and we've got 2 uniquely different scrubbing technologies. So all these are on display at the port tomorrow. You can come and poke them and lick them and do whatever you like. So they'll be there to look at. So this is one dreamed up by Mebrom. They're the world's biggest supplier of methyl bromide. Sucks it in through an inlet chamber at the front, just behind the truck cab. Lots of sensors in there. Runs it through a generator to burn it, and then out of your outlet comes hydrogen bromide, which mixes with water to form hydrobromic acid, which is a bloody sight more toxic than methyl bromide, but it's highly soluble. Then the stainless steel box just behind that is a liquid scrubber, scrubs it through that and out. So again, they were saying, you guys should stop working on yours. This is cleaner, it's better, it's shiny, and it's wonderful, and it's great. The first trial we had with it, it fell flat. They're so excited about the development. They've got this one that we're playing with is going to America next week to be deployed commercially, and I'm bugging to find out what's going to happen. But the good news is the new one's coming, which they've fixed most of the bugs that we identified, and it's got a turbine on, so if nothing else, it'll sound cool. But you know, this is the world's cutting edge technology, and it's not really that great. I have time to think about this sort of stuff only really when I'm on the plane. So I was just flying out of the States and had an idea, so I wrote this email up to Howard and said, I think I've got a way that we could do a swing system on and off carbon. And people have talked about that for years and cracked it. So about a year later, he came back and said, you know that email you sent me a year ago? Yeah. There's one in China almost like that. I said, let's go. So we went straight on a plane, went to China, because anyone anywhere on the planet that's got methyl bromide scrubbing on there. So we turned up to China, and here it was. It had been, the guy who mandates fumigation on import there is also like the environmental regulator, so he makes sure that they can't do it and shut the port down because of the methyl bromide. He also owns the Recapture technology. He'd shut this port down while they built a much bigger system on the port. Every photo he melted out of the photo. Did it work? Did it not? You can see there it's being decommissioned and made bigger. They've got railway tracks going in with the logs on. There was not a skerrick of bark inside. I couldn't tell whether a log had ever been inside the system. All those nice buttons on the control panel. Open it, no wiring behind it. We were told you can't take photos, so these are photos with a phone down like that. So based on all of that, I went back to our board and said, I think we're going to make one of these. It'll cost $500,000. How's that? And there was a bit of debate. Again, I tendered my resignation, and they said, no, stay on, we'll do it. So we designed a mobile one stuck in a 40-foot container with our sort of pimps and modifications, a bit of work on whether we're using activated carbon fibre wound onto titanium spools or whether we're doing this. And again, it was all designed at that peak of ignorance point, and we've got it built, shipped to New Zealand, and we're using that. We've done a first trial at the port, and it works a bloody treat, and you guys can see that tomorrow morning too. So that's it. So there's $500,000 worth of gear here packed into a shipping container. I think the cost now, because I've got 10 guys on it full time, it's probably up to $600K already. But the idea is you can draw it onto, you run it through a chiller first, drop the moisture out. Moisture is preferentially adsorbed to carbon, so you've got a bit more efficiency then. Onto your carbon fibre, then you can draw a vacuum on it to get it off and reuse your methyl bromide. Under vacuum, it's about 1/4 the boiling temperature, so you don't have fires like that first one I showed you. You don't need quite so much heat out of your furnace. A whole lot of advantages that we thought about on the plane. So we might have cracked it, but we might not. So really we've got 3 sort of cutting edge technologies that we're hoping there. The one with the turbine, which will be fun and noisy, this one and the scrubber. 1, 2 or 3 of those could be a success, and 1, 2 or 3 of those could be white elephants. But so far we're getting there, and one of the reports by Stimber about everybody in the world that had done methyl bromide said Genera is the one company that has consistently understated its capabilities in this area. So at least we haven't been talking shit. Thank you.